PGA Nation, we are back, and we are in the swing of things. That was one of the most exciting finishes last week that we've seen. Pebble Beach gave us everything we could have wanted and asked for. It was such a great finish. It got me all jazzed up now for the rest of the West Coast swing, because I think it's just going to get better from here, as we had this week to the Genesis at Riviera. Another great tournament. It should be a great test. A little bit of a smaller field, but it's certainly going to have a lot of fun on DFS and betting this week. And we're going to break it down with you, of course. If we're going to go to Riviera, we're bringing in the big guns as a special guest. Andy Lack drafting with us tonight. Andy, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Spencer was like maybe my second or third podcast guest ever. It was the Pick the Pup golf show in right after COVID.
Yeah.
To be honest. And it's just like, it's crazy how we're both still doing the exact same thing all these years later. So it's a pleasure to join you guys. I'll never say no to Spencer, because he said yes to me when I had maybe 7 Twitter followers. So happy to be here tonight.
Well, the way the people say it, right? The great people follow great people. You both are legends in this space. So we are glad and honored to be able to draft with you tonight, Andy and Spencer, every week, as we always do. Spence, how you doing tonight? Is that a Lakers hat you're rocking?
Yeah. I was going to wear my Lakers starters jacket, but that felt like a little bit too much of an LA theme going on. So I just rocked the hat. Big Kobe fan from back in the day, so it's not necessarily a bandwagon thing for the tournament. But I will say this, Andy is probably the most requested guest that we get on the show all the time.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people love the content, including the people that are writers over at Rotoballer that are always like, have Andy on. And it's nothing but mutual respect all the way through. I mean, Andy says he has 7 followers at the time. I probably had 100. We've come a long way from those moments, and very proud of what Andy's doing. I would like to give Andy a second to talk about what he has created over on Inside Sports Network, and we can move into the show after that.
Very briefly. We have like a great marketing team that we hired this year. So I would imagine that most people, hopefully maybe know the deal of what we do over there, but it's a great community for DFS players and golf bettors, where we just, like to try and predict the outcome correctly of professional golf tournaments and win some money and have some fun along the way. So I appreciate you giving me that plug there. We're in year 2. So it's been a wild ride thus far, and hopefully many more years to come.
If you don't already, I'm sure if you're watching this show, you already follow Andy. But if you don't, make sure you give him a follow. Follow the Inside Sports Network. You're watching this, you're betting on golf, you're playing DFS. You're going to win more. You're going to make more money by having Andy in your rotation.
So, we do a lot of free stuff. So if you don't want to sign up and get the behind the paywall stuff, we do make a huge effort to put out a ton of free. I think we have 6 free shows a week on our YouTube channel. So I appreciate you saying that, and excited to get to it. This is a golf course I know very, very well. I played this golf course I've played this golf course probably now 6 times. And I've gone to this tournament probably now 4 or 5 times. So excited to dive into it.
Well, there you go. We have a resident course expert. So the course breakdown is going to be extra special tonight. Spence, let's start with you. Let's hear how you're breaking the course down, what you're looking for this week at Riviera. And then Andy, we'd love to take your thoughts on the course as well.
I'm going to do something, Joel, that I've never done on this show before. I am going to defer to Andy. I think whatever I tell you is going to be a lot of the same statistical data that Andy would be telling you 2 seconds later. He also has that insider knowledge of playing the venue that I do not have. So I think it's just better for the show. It saves a little bit of time. Let's have Andy talk about it.
I will be semi-brief because I want to get into the draft and stuff, and I don't want to bore everyone with all the architectural nerdy or data stuff. But I think the blanket statement that we need to talk about and think about when breaking down Riviera this year is that Los Angeles is a puddle right now. I mean, I don't think you can hear the rain outside my window, but it has rained. I live about 25 minutes from the course. It's rained nonstop for 2 days straight, and it's going to rain again tomorrow as well. So the Riviera that we have seen in years past, kind of the firmer, faster greens, that's not there. There isn't enough sub air in the world for them to get this golf course firm in time for when the tournament starts. Now, how does that affect the players that we're looking for? Well, it's going to be cold. This is some of the colder weather that we've seen in Los Angeles in a while. It's going to be just as cold as Pebble Beach, if not colder. We're getting temperatures in Brentwood in the low 50s or high 40s. And so the golf course is going to play cold and long and wet. And I think sometimes people think that makes the golf course play more difficult. I don't tend to believe that. I think when you give these guys soft greens, even if a lot of the approach shots from this course are from 150 to 200 yards, these are just going to be a lot softer greens that I think are going to offset some of the extra length that the golf course is going to play. There were some changes to the golf course. They built a new tee on 4. It's 265 yards now. That tee was primarily built for the US Open and the Olympics. I don't know how much you're going to use it. The PGA Tour has they really don't often tip these courses out. They really tend to take it easy on the guys, especially when it's predicted colder and windier conditions. But I think I would probably give a pretty big bump to length off the tee. It's already a golf course that I think is kind of like a underratedly more of a distance than accuracy golf course. And people think the fairways are really narrow there. So even some of the most accurate players actually tend to statistically lose their advantage because the fairways become so narrow that even the most accurate players are going to struggle to hit a overall fairway percentage of 50% on the week. And the rough is not as bad as people think. Like every time I play Riviera, I'm always surprised how much room you have off the tee. Like it is more tree lined than Torrey Pines. It's not the sort of golf course where if you miss 30 yards from the fairway versus missing 2 yards from the fairway, you basically have the same angle in. It's a much better designed golf course than that. But these guys are like, they're so good that architecture it matters way less for them. Angles matter way less for them than it would for you and me, based on the fact that they can just launch a 9-iron 180 yards and get it to stop on a really soft green. So to put a blanket statement on it, I think it's still a big week for short game, but I think it's one of the highest course history correlated golf course on the PGA Tour outside of Augusta and Bay Hill. But if I was to kind of put a blanket statement on it, I would say you're probably a pretty safe bet would be to be guys that hit the ball a long way, have a really good short game, and have played well at Riviera before. I don't think you'll be barking up too much of a wrong tree if you kind of focus on those couple of things.
That's as good of inside knowledge as you're going to find. We appreciate it. Now, I'm feeling extra prepared. I do have one question for you, Andy, before we move off this. Do you think, or do you have any sense of if the rough might be extra long because of how much rain that you're getting this week?
It will be longer, but Kikuyu it never gets like, it's not dense like Torrey, right? And if you look at the last couple of years, the missed fairway penalty, the rough penalty is pretty low on this golf course. And so I'm not crazy concerned about it. I'm not. I think these guys will still have a decently easy time. I mean, I don't know, Spencer, do you predict the scoring average every year? We've kind of found a lot of edge, I would say, going for like round scores and the overall total scoring average, which I think is set to minus 16.5 if you're thinking about it in under par terms. I think that's a pretty good line, but I would probably lean to somebody getting to -17. What do you think?
I was going to say before you, I did not know what the total was. I would have said probably 18 under par is what wins this. I just think at the end of the day, you touched on a lot of those factors. People look at this course, and this is not the same venue that we had 5 years ago, where this used to be that fringe single digit under par sort of a winner.
Yes.
Modern technology, the way that this course plays, you see it with the output. This is a very driver heavy course. It's this grip it and rip it mentality to where Andy talked about it. You need to be good with those mid irons plus. You need to be a good POA putter. You need to be good around the green. I just think that when you are looking at this tournament for this year, these greens are going to be very receptive coming in. And that makes me think that 18, 19, I mean, that's kind of 17 to 19 is what we've seen the last 3 times. Maybe because it's so wet, it doesn't get to much higher than that. But like, I wouldn't be shocked if this thing, maybe it's like a specific Scotty runaway or Rory runaway if it goes in that fashion. But I wouldn't be shocked if this thing got around 20 under par.
And it's cold too. So it's not like you're getting a bunch of sunlight reflected off the canyon that will kind of firm these greens up. Like it's going to be kind of cold and cloudy for the next couple of days. So yes, it'd be a little bit of a different Riviera than I think people are used to this week, but I think we can use the weather advantage, hopefully, to I'll have a good week financially. So
boom, there you have it. That is a great in-depth course breakdown. I am excited to get into this draft as well. Spencer, you are the big winner last week. Congratulations. And to be honest, it wasn't particularly close. I think you had me by almost 100 points or something close to 100 points. So Spencer, great job last week with the draft. Spencer's picking the order tonight, and Spencer is rewarding team audience with the first overall pick, and of course putting me last. So Spencer, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Audience, you're going to get to go first, which means you are on the clock. Go ahead right away. You have the first pick, so start getting those nominations in. In case anyone is new to the show tonight, a quick refresher of how this draft works. We're drafting 4 teams, snake style. So it's like your typical fantasy football draft. We're going 1 through 4. Audience, you're first. Andy will go second. Spencer third. I will go last. So I'll have 2 in a row there. And the 4th spot, I'll go 4 or 5, and then we'll go back. The big caveat to our draft is you do need to stay within a DraftKings salary. So you can't just take all the best players. You need to actually be able to afford the team in DraftKings that you are drafting. All right, team audience. The first pick is locked in and right on cue, and not really much of a surprise here. Scotty Scheffler, the best player by far, first guy off the board. Listen, we don't need to spend much time talking about how great Scotty is. He's far and away the favorite to win. I think the only question that really comes up from a DFS standpoint is, will the price tag in ownership be too high for you to just pivot and go in another direction? You know, you saw last week, he didn't even win the tournament, but he still scored an insane amount of points, and he came all the way back from kind of being out of it to the top of the leaderboard. So, you know he's going to be there. It's just a matter of, can you build enough of a lineup with him in it to still win? It's a smaller field. It's not a no-cut event, but I think only like 15 players are going to get cut, so that's something to think about. Andy, we'll go to you. Obviously, you don't have to tell us you like Scotty Scheffler, but will you be playing him in DFS at the highest ownership in $1,400, $14,300?
I'm not. And I'm not playing him DFS, and that doesn't mean it wasn't a good pick by any means. Here's my thing with Scotty this week is, like, you got to think of, it's like that line in Moneyball, right? Where it's like, you're not buying wins, you're buying runs. And in DraftKings, you're buying DraftKings points, right? And the problem with Scotty this week for me is that there's a cut of the top 50 in ties in a 70-man field, right? So if you think about this as like a math equation, last week there was no cut. So all of those DraftKings points at the bottom, all those guys that you would take risks on, all those guys with the lowest made cut percentage in the field that you can fit in a lineup with Scotty Scheffler this week, their made cut percentage that week goes to 100% because there's no cut. The problem with Scotty this week, in my opinion, that makes it more of a difficult decision is that in a field like this, I think the vast majority of the 10 to 15 guys that get cut are going to be a lot of the guys that are lower priced that you're playing in a Scotty Scheffler lineup, because you have $7,100 remaining. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get different with him. Doesn't mean he can't still be in the optimal. But I think compared to like last week, I think it's a more complex equation because I don't think the cut does any favors to the concept of the building strategy around Scheffler, if that makes sense.
I think your point's an interesting one. I think it does make sense. Essentially, I said to Spencer before the show, I said there's like a bottom 10 or so players that are just like you really don't want on your line. You kind of want to ignore. And after that, you can kind of play anybody here. And to your point, you're kind of saying, well, if you play Scotty, you're kind of forced into playing someone in that bottom 10 or so.
And the 6K range is really small. Like you're all fighting over the same guys. Like it's not a big 6 and 7K range.
It's interesting. So, I mean, I think that's a point well taken. It's about, as we were learning, it's about getting 6 good golfers. Like Scotty can go out and win the tournament, but if there's a lot of guys that score well and you can get, 2 through 6 in your lineup, when Scotty has 3 guys miss the cut with him, obviously when Scotty wins and you have 3 guys miss the cut, the other lineup's going to do better.
Correct.
Even if you win. So it's thinking about all 6 golfers, not just the first pick. I think that's a really good point. All right. Well, he's off the board, so you can't have him anyway, but you weren't going to take him. Andy, with your first pick, who are you going with?
So, first of all, can I ask a question? How often does the guest win?
the guest has not won in over a year. So,
are you guys serious?
Yeah.
It's been over a year?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I guess that takes some of the pressure off. Okay, so if I'm trying to beat you guys, I'm not as concerned about ownership. I will place a caveat. I think this guy is going to catch a lot of steam. He's very popular in our community. My first run through of ownership projections had him at 19%, but I think he's my pick to win the tournament, and that's Matt Fitzpatrick at 8,400. I think he's significantly underpriced. He almost led the field in approach play last week at Pebble. He's got a great short game. He's not the prototypical bomber that you would think, but he's certainly not short. He's been very successful in colder conditions across the pond. Like he's got a ton of great success playing in kind of colder length style golf courses. And I just I think he is a tremendous option this week based on the short game baseline that we have from him and the recent uptick in approach. He would be my first pick at 8,400.
Boom, 8,400 value off the board. I think one thing I find especially interesting with Fitzpatrick this week is we've seen him have some really good results here in the past. A little bit longer ago, we've seen some poor results, but we've also seen him play as a top 15 golfer in the world. That was a little bit longer ago, and we've seen him kind of fall off. So he definitely kind of has waves of form. He's definitely playing much better right now. He's in his form where you want to play him. And we've seen when he is playing well, that the upside's there. He's given you a top 5 at this tournament in the past, which we know this course is very predictive. So I like that pick. Spence, will Matt Fitzpatrick be in your player pool?
Yeah, probably. Like one of the things that I always add on Wednesday, which I don't currently have in my model right now, is I will go to some of the sharper markets, whether that is a Circa, a Pinnacle, a bookmaker. There's a handful out there that all makes sense. And just look at where Matt Fitzpatrick has moved on bookmaker already. Like he is, I think the last I looked, he's 33-1. That number has moved pretty heavily over the last 24 hours there. He's sharp in all iterations of the market. He's sharp in matchups. He's sharp pretty much everywhere you want to look this week. And like, if you were not even running a model of your own, like this is like a counterintuitive thing for me to say, since like I sell a model, you could look just at purely movements at some of those sharper books and get a very good indicator. That doesn't necessarily mean that every single golfer that moves is going to be a golfer that I'm going to put into a lineup, but it is good to see where the sharp money's hitting, where totals are shifting throughout the week. And Fitzpatrick's very, very sharp. I
couldn't agree more. Just to add, I think that's, again, it's one piece of the puzzle, but I value that quite a bit, to the point that we actually added a live odds screen where we solely track bookmaker line movement, and we actually call it our nuke meter, because we call it nukes because like sometimes you'll like blink and a guy will go from like 70 to 40-1 on bookmaker, which by the way happened with Colin Morikawa last week. And so we have like a whole tool, the nuke percentage, where we look at that shit every week. I think that's well said.
It's a great point. I will say, I never said it on this show, but I do it every week. If you look, I actually use the Roto Baller tool, the PGA Research Station, and in there it'll actually show you how much the line has moved. So if you're looking at different tiers of golfers, and you can say, listen, I'm stuck. I need somebody in the low 7K range. I'm not sure. Usually what I do is pick whoever has the best odds to win at that point and say, okay, that's usually the highest odds for me. And that doesn't always correlate to ownership either. So you can still get a guy who's got better odds, who people in DFS world maybe aren't high on from there. So I think, Andy, that is a really good strategy. Spence, you're up with your first pick here. Where are you going?
So I have made this argument. I made it last week. I'm going to make the same argument again. I ended up taking him. I had the same third pick last week. I took him at the 202. Scottie Scheffler, of course, the number one golfer in the world from a statistical perspective. You're not really going to get close to him. It is what it is in today's modern day of golf. For me, though, and it's a unique outlook because I really like the 2 and 3 in my model. My model this week is very consistent with what the market looks like. The one difference that I would say is Tommy Fleetwood at $10,300 continues, for my math, to be the second best player in the world. I think you can make arguments that Fleetwood doesn't have the distance that Rory necessarily does, and maybe this wet course is going to play a little bit more into Rory's hands. I could make an argument that I had Fleetwood last week at Pebble Beach, and that may have been the better opportunity for him to get across the finish line than even what we have here. His numbers are not quite as sound for me, but any of the driver-heavy courses that you look at, he checks the boxes. Any of these colder courses, those like European-style courses, he checks the boxes. And if we just want to talk about purely short game, he's a wizard around the green. He is as good as they come on tour. And I kind of am still in this belief that when he opened in the market, this is more of an outright answer, but when he opened in the market this week at 28-1, that's a lot of that stigma that's attached to him of people still thinking it's same old Fleetwood. But if you dive into the data from a 2-year perspective, specifically of what you've gotten from the end of last year into this year, I mean, he's the second best player that I have according to my math. So I'm happy to get Fleetwood here. If I had the number one pick, I may have selected Tommy Fleetwood. So I'm happy the way that this worked out, that I moved myself back a couple spots and probably didn't put myself in a super disadvantage by taking him first.
He got hit pretty hard today too. I don't know if you saw that. He's like 18.5 on Bookmaker now. Great pick. Love it.
There you have it. Tommy Fleetwood off the board. Now, Spencer, do you think Tommy can go out and win this tournament, or are you just more taking him to get a good result?
No, I mean, I bet him to win this golf tournament. I didn't get as good of the 28-1 numbers. I don't know why I was expecting that number to not to go down the way that it did. Like Circa hit it really fast last night, like before I could even get it at the 28. And I think Circa moved a couple of the markets. And then today we've seen the residual effects of that come into play. But whether you're getting it around 22 to 25-1, I think all of those numbers are value. And it's not to say that Rory at like the 12, 13, 14 marks is also not potentially a value himself for all the reasons that Andy talked about, with the course being a good fit naturally for him and all the statistical profiles that my model likes with him. But it's one of those situations where if I think they are the same player, and I think Rory is very close to potentially being a value himself, you know, I'm getting 10 points more here with Fleetwood. So it's a little bit of a number grab. It's also one of those things where, yeah, there is a built-in safety. I don't love where the ownership is moving on him. He's much more popular than I thought he was going to be right now at this point. But I think when you naturally deviate away from Scheffler in a lineup, you're already kind of maneuvering away from the consensus.
Ooh, all right. Off the board. Before we move off Fleetwood, Andy, I would love to hear from you. Are you going to be playing Tommy Fleetwood this week?
Absolutely. Yeah. He may even be in my core. I quite like Rory too, but yeah, I'm quite high on Fleetwood. I kind of have one more spot open on my outright card, and I was kind of deciding between Fleetwood and Hideki. And that may have kind of just pushed me over the edge on Fleetwood. You probably prefer Fleetwood to Hideki in a vacuum, right, Spencer? If like we'll say Fleetwood I can get at 22 and Hideki I can get at like only maybe 24 or 25.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the price point of where you're at, I also like Hideki. I don't have a problem with him this week. It's just
Me too.
he feels. This is more of a DraftKings answer for an outright market. It's not quite the same thing. He feels a little bit more boom or bust to me than Fleetwood is for this tournament.
Agree. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think it's a great transition because I will be taking Hideki with my first pick. So,
Yeah. Good pick.
you know, as you guys mentioned, there is definitely going to be a core of a few guys that are, and I think Hideki's one of them. It's going to take a little bit of ownership as well. And one of the reasons being, you know, we're not the first ones to tell you this. If anywhere you're looking for content, this is one of the more predictive courses year over year, right? We know, like Augusta, right? Guys come here and they either play well, and Hideki has a great history. And so for Hideki, if you just want to look at it on the surface, you know, he won here in 2024. But even before that, he's got a bunch of top 10s. But you're marrying that with the fact that he's playing great. I mean, each of the last couple of weeks, we've seen him near the top of the leaderboard, playing some of his best golf. So you put Hideki in great form up there on a course that has that's very predictive that we know he likes. You know, Hideki Matsuyama, I think, obviously can go out and win this tournament, but I think he at least he's safe. I think he at least get a really good result. Give me him in at least for a top 10 or 20. And then to go along with Hideki for my second, well, before I make my second pick, we'll go back to you here, Andy. I think you said good pick, but any reason not to play Hideki this week other than maybe ownership?
Other than like the super non-analytical answer of like Hideki's just could be due to screw you. Like he's had a couple really strong finishes in a row, and you know, generally, like you think back to last year, Hideki won this tournament at 75-1, right? He tends to kind of reach his high point in the market and then remind you of his volatility. And now you could have made the argument that would have happened at Pebble Beach last week, where I faded him there and he rolled right along with the top 10. So I don't have a good statistical or course fit reason to fade Hideki at all.
Oh.
He's 2 overall in my modeling, slightly even higher than Rory. That could just be, he's got like the best short game in the world right now, but yeah, super viable pick.
All right. Hideki off the board. With my second pick, I'm actually going to go down and I'm going to take some value off the board. I'm going to take Tony Finau. I think Tony Finau is someone in the 6K range who at a low price tag can give you a lot of upside. And if you're relying on that history, someone who knows the course. I mean, Finau, you're not going to beat Finau's history for his price tag. I mean, he's got an excellent course history at this course. And it does seem as though he's starting to turn a corner. He's striking the ball much better. We've seen Tony Finau give you 2 top 20s in his last 3 outings. The approach play has been on point. I think at a course that Tony Finau likes, I think we're going to see some upside at 6,800. I'm actually surprised by the ownership. I thought he would have come in a little bit chalkier. I'm only seeing about 5%. At that point, I'd happily play Tony Finau this week, but maybe that's off. So Spence, I'd love to hear from you. What ownership number are you seeing on Tony Finau, and will he be in your player pool this week?
I would be curious to hear what Andy has also. I see more of like the 11.7 to 12.5% range right now.
On Tony?
Yes.
Finau ownership. Let me pull it up. I can give it to you exact right now what I had. 7.5. You think that's a little low? I do another run tomorrow morning. That could be low. But we had 7.5 this morning.
I mean, the number I had was actually lower than that, but I just seems that it feels low to me. I just feel like he's going to come in at least at 10 or 12.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'll probably have him higher on the second run. I think 8 to 11 sounds right, maybe.
Yeah, I think that feels more right, especially in the smaller field. But I like him a lot, and I'd happily play him even at 8 to 11. I think at 6,800, especially if you're playing a GPP, I think not many guys have the upside Tony's going to give you in the 6K range. And especially what I like about it is it's going to be a very popular common start to do Scheffler and Finau. Because obviously you need to find some 6K guys. So if you're going to do a lineup without Scheffler that has Tony, it's going to be unique in its own right. All right, Spence, Matsuyama and Finau off the board. You got Fleetwood, about 8K per pick left. Where are you going from here?
Yeah, I'm really happy to land this player here at this pick. It was it was one of those situations where, like I talked about it last week. I started with my value very early on, and then I took Fleetwood, and I decided to flip the script this go around. I'm going to take Harris English at $7,900.
Great pick.
The off the tee stuff with Harris is phenomenal at this point. He's the number 2 player, and I say this all the time. I run things from a much longer duration of time than most people, but when I cut things down to just look at 2026, he's the 2nd overall player off the tee. He is just striping the ball off the tee at this point. And you want to talk about courses where players need to be savvy. They need to have that around the green game. They need to be able to putt. Harris English checks all those boxes. And I think there's a reason why we've gotten back-to-back top 12 finishes for him at this course from 2024 and 2023. I was actually anticipating this ownership to be higher than what I currently have it projected right now. Like, for me, this is one of those spots where I feel like I'm a little bit too low at 12%. Like, Joel, last week I had this battle going on with Data Golfer. I pretty much said all their numbers were wrong across the board.
You won.
I did. I mean, that's one of the best weeks I've had in a really long time. It kind of just across the board, everything seemed to hit. Data Golf likes Harris English this week, and I think that means that ownership will probably naturally drive itself up throughout the next couple days. He is, if we want to talk about sharp players, like we talked about it with Fitzpatrick a second ago, I bet English in a matchup very, very early on Monday. I got him against Ludwig Oberg at -105. That number has been nuked into the sun. I think you're looking at like 150 or 160, but it's not just the Oberg matchups that have taken that route. It is every single matchup that Harris English is involved in the entire space for the most part, including against guys that I like a lot more than Ludwig Oberg from a safety perspective. So I think that I said last week, Jake Knapp was the most underpriced player on the board in that $7,000 range. I'm going to say the comment this week that Harris English is the most underpriced player in the $7,000 range.
I'm surprised he went there. I like English as well. I was actually contemplating him, but I thought I'd get him later, so I didn't take him there. But that goes to show you maybe he won't be as low owned as we thought. But of course, Spencer, that is a great pick there at 7,900. Andy, it sounds like you endorsed that pick as well. We'd love to get your take, and then you're up with your second pick as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't have gotten him later because I would have taken him. Yeah, I bet him. He was the first bet that I made. I got a 45 to 1. I have him at 16%. So, he's not sneaking up on anybody. I think Data Golf, as Spencer mentioned, will play a role in that. And my community is quite high on him. I've spent a lot of airtime on Harris English this week. So totally agree with you, Spencer. That's a great pick. I'm up, right?
You're up.
Okay. I'm going to take Minwoo Lee at $7,600. Another player I bet at 48 to 1. I mean, I just think if you blindly look at the prototype of distance off the tee and short game, Minwoo Lee has an incredibly underrated short game. Like, he is very, very good around the greens. He's one of the longest players on the PGA Tour. And he's coming off a spike iron week at Pebble Beach, right? So I believe that he can keep it going. I don't think that his performance at Pebble Beach was by any means a flash in the pan. I actually think this is a much better golf course for him under the conditions that we're expecting. I think it's kind of a perfect spot for him. So I'll take Minwoo Lee at 7,600.
Minwoo Lee off the board, playing great golf right now. Audience, you are on the clock. Great job getting some of those nominations in. You have two. It looks like one might be locked as we wait. Spencer, we'd love to get your take on the Minwoo Lee pick.
Yeah, I like what Andy had to say there. It's that distance, and it's the most interesting thing for me is I went through, and one of the things I always like to project out for the in-tournament, a lot of my bread and butter comes with those in-tournament matchups and stuff. And Minwoo entering Sunday was one of my model's favorite plays because he was putting together an iron performance that is not really typical of what we see from him week in and week out. And if we want to say that short game and the distance plays, and now all of a sudden you could potentially have a golfer that is in form with the approach play entering this tournament, I think there's a really high ceiling there. And as an outright bet in that 40-something to 1 range, it's certainly a route to consider. And on DraftKings, I don't. What percentage did you say you had him at, Andy?
He's going to be highly owned too. I think Minwoo was probably hovering 14 to 16. He's liked on Data Golf. I would expect, I'm not drafting for ownership here. I'm drafting to beat you guys, but I would expect Minwoo and Harris English to be amongst the highest two owned in the 7K range.
Yeah, I would.
I could be wrong, but that's what I think. I think it'll be popular.
Yeah.
All right. There you have it. Team audience, great job getting the first pick locked in. It looks like Bridgman is it Bridgman and Fox? Courtney Harden, no problem being late. Your team needs you. You are their captain. It looks like we already have a controversy. So Courtney coming in strong. It looks like Fox and Bridgman are off the board. You know, Bridgman has looked great this season. He's coming out hot. He's striking the ball really well. And of course, Ryan Fox, who had a few hot rounds last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? Coming up here at the 6K, what is he, 6,500? So another value. That's kind of what a lot of Scotty teams have to look to get their values off the board quickly. We'll go back to you here, Andy. Do you like Bridgman or Fox this week?
Fox more than Bridgman. I think Fox will probably make the pool. Bridgman, I'm not just sure about. I think there's going to be more of an uphill climb for Bridgman than the test he faced at Pebble. But I think Fox at 6,500, definitely one of my favorite plays in the 6K range.
Wow, Fox endorsed by Andy. Audience, great start getting those two off the board. And now, Andy, you got your third here. You have about 8,500 left to spend, so plenty of money. Where are you going to go with your third pick?
I'm probably going to take Rory because I feel like I have the salary to build that way. And if I was going to build a balanced lineup, it would probably be centered around Fleetwood. So that, considering that's off the board, I think it probably like getting the most expected value out of taking Rory here, which still leaves me 7,500 left, a little more than 7,500 left. So I'll take Rory. I mean, I think like everybody knows that Rory tends to play well on driver heavy, wet golf courses, right? No one will ever forget how, what he did to Congressional on a super soaking wet golf course when he won that PGA there. And he's had plenty of success on the West Coast and on POA at LACC and Pebble Beach. I don't think I need to wax poetically about Rory. I wasn't expecting to get him this week, but the way the draft has been going, I think he's the smartest move for me at this point in the draft.
Interesting. Rory, I actually thought Rory was going to get back to me here. Obviously, if I really wanted him, I could have taken him in my first round. But Rory, it's an interesting strategic pick at this point, getting one, obviously probably the best player available off the board. It's still leaving you enough money to build around it. I think it's a really good pick here. Obviously, Rory's upside is as great as anyone's. Spence, would love to hear from you on Rory McIlroy this week.
I was trying to figure out if there was a way to cram Fleetwood and Rory into my lineup if he would have ended up falling to me. The one that hurts the most, my lineup was very, very set on trying to cram Ryan Fox in there to open up a bunch of salary in other spots. Kind of shocked that the audience took him. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be. I've kind of written about him a bunch over in the Rotoballer Discord channel this week, but that one hurts the most because now all of a sudden I'm looking at this build to where I don't really have a lot of natural spots that I'm trying to get to where talk for a second. Let me try to figure out where I'm going here because I've kind of been spending the last 2 minutes figuring out where the next move is after that Ryan Fox pick.
We've left Spencer scrambled, rethinking his draft. 8K left per pick. I'll go back to you here, Andy. Is there anyone on the draft board? I was originally going to ask you that you're surprised was not taken, but that will give too much away. So is anyone on the draft that you're surprised was taken this early in the draft?
No, I think you guys have made good picks. I mean, I think I'm probably a little lower on Finau and Bridgman than you guys, but like Tommy and Harris, Scheffler, obviously, and Hideki. No, I'm maybe surprised a little bit that Rory didn't get that I was able to get Rory this far. But on the other hand, like Harris English was my plan in the second round, and he got sniped.
And that is the beauty of the draft. It never goes the way you originally intended. That's what makes it so challenging. But you still get a really good squad either way. So Spence, your clock is run out. Where are you going with your third pick?
The second that push comes to shove and I don't know what to do, this feels like the cop-out answer that I give on every single show that makes it so I do not win. It's going to leave me with some salary problems. I understand nobody in this audience is going to like the pick. You've heard it from me one too many times. I've sworn to not mention the player over and over again. I'm going to take Patrick Cantlay at $9,300. I'm going to bank on the course history. Yeah. I'm going to trust the California Poa narrative. And I mean, this was a very painful outright for me. I had him in 2024 where he ended up imploding on himself, got sick, and did not play well on Sunday. But I really wish Ryan Fox could have been a part of this lineup because that's kind of what I was trying to do to open this up. I'm going to just go with the same route that I was and figure out if there is another player down there that I can kind of reopen the world up for myself.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm funny enough, similarly to you, I never liked to play Patrick Cantlay, but he was also someone I was considering here with my next pick. I really like the course fit. You know, the price was right. He really looked like he was turning a corner, especially Sunday, last week. So it could be trending in the right direction for Cantlay. I did think 9,300 at this point seems a little pricey for what we've seen from him, but that's kind of generally where he's been priced for the most part. How about you, Andy? Is Patrick Cantlay going to be in your player pool?
Yeah, I have a problem too, though. I think Cantlay. I think he's a really good second man into a Fleetwood lineup. That's probably how I would play him as well. I also think you could play him with Rory. Can't really play him with Scotty, but yeah, I actually like Cantlay. You guys like Cantlay more than Xander this week?
I do.
That's a tough one.
I do too.
Yeah, I would say yes. I think right now I'm on a place with Xander where I'm going to need to see a good finish before I want to go back, especially at these prices. I'm going to see it on the course before I start speculating he'll be able to turn it around again. So at least Cantlay last week that, he had a great Sunday, that form, not the same course, but he was striking the ball well.
I feel like Xander until we see something different. He's 15th overall in my model this week. I kind of feel like somewhere in that 10 to 15 range is what we're going to get from him until something changes and until we see that. I don't have a massive interest. I would be curious what Andy's ownership percentage is on him. I have Xander very high in projection. I have him at 18 to 20%, depending on which iteration I run of it.
Ownership for me on Xander is 15%. You think that's too low?
I don't know. I mean, I would actually think you are probably more correct with that number. The 18 to 20% feels too high. I feel like everybody is trying to either cram in Fleetwood or they're moving down into all those other names there. I would be kind of shocked if Xander's as high as my numbers are. We'll see where they update tomorrow, but I don't know. I saw the 18% number and it kind of sent me for a loop on it.
I think Fleetwood's catching some serious steam. Yeah. I think Fleetwood and Hideki will be 5 points higher than Xander.
I would agree.
Yeah.
That certainly does make sense. All right. Well, a lot of the ways I was planning to go has changed. A lot of the guys I wanted got taken. So I'm taking a new route here. I'm going to take Russell Henley. And with my second pick, I'm going to take Ludwig. I'm going to go with both there. One, I know you guys started to mention Ludwig before. I'm going to go back to it. I just think he's too underpriced for his upside. If you look at Ludwig and you look at, I'll say Cantlay and Ludwig, even last year, Ludwig was consistently priced above Cantlay, consistently in that high 9K range. I think, he is more of the golfer that we're used to, or the more elite guys on tour, than the price tag that he's getting. I think they've underpriced him here. And they did last week as well. And we saw, he started to really hit the ball better. And this course should suit him better than, what we saw at Pebble Beach. And the length should fit into his game. I think we have a mispriced here. And that's what is making Ludwig so attractive to me this week. I would love to get your take here. Andy, are you playing either Russell Henley or Aubert?
Yeah, I don't think I'm in on Russ. I just think it's not that he hasn't played better than you'd think on long golf courses. But this just doesn't feel as much to me like a Russ spot. And I bet him at Pebble. I thought it was a tremendous golf course fit at Pebble. And he was not hitting his irons well. And when Russ isn't hitting his irons well, that causes some concern for me. Ludwig, however, feels like a lot of similarities to the spot that we were in with Morikawa last week. And I liked Morikawa. I didn't think he was going to win. I played him in DraftKings, didn't really consider him as an outright bet. But when players of this caliber come back to good course fits, and since Ludwig first started, I've always thought that Ludwig's best golf courses on tour were going to be Riviera, Bay Hill, Torrey Pines. Obviously, he's won at, Quail Hollow, Muirfield Village, your beefier, longer golf courses. He's like 50 something to 1, 50 to 1, 60 to 1, something like that. It could be like a perfect buy low on Ludwig at a great course fit. My only concern is I don't have a lot of faith in his short game right now. And you will need that here. But if he can win at Torrey Pines, I think he'll probably get a Riviera win before the end of the year. And the tricky thing for me is, like, in a GPP, if Fitz is 18, 19% and Ludwig's 9%, that would be worth pivoting to me as much as I love Fitz.
And I agree with you. I think you made a really good point there. I think this week, especially because it's a smaller field than normal, I think some of those pivots might make a bigger difference than most weeks, where you can find a guy like Ludwig who's really small ownership. And that doesn't mean, don't play Fitz. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is there's some guys that are getting overlooked, that are getting probably lower ownership than they probably should. And those are guys that I would prioritize more this week than in even normal weeks. All right, Spence, you got about 7,500 per pick left. You have Cantlay. Where are you going with your fourth pick?
Man, I really wish Minwoo was on the board right now. Like I said, this Fox thing is just a bit of a problem to this lineup. I'm going to continue to just back myself in a corner and just continue to run out of salary at this point from where I want to be. This is my favorite matchup on the board, this particular player. I think you can still find somewhere near this total if you shop around. I'm going to take Maverick McNeely at $8,100. I have a matchup with him.
That was my pick.
Well, I mean, it makes me feel a little bit better that you now have Minwoo for me, I guess. But I have Maverick McNeely in a matchup against Jordan Spieth. I think Spieth is getting this market bump, at least from public perception, that kind of moved him very early in the market into a range here that he probably should not have been against the quality of players that he's against. And like, when we look at McNeely's game and we look at what he's done recently, like I was expecting this ownership to be a little bit higher. I talked about this with Cantlay with some of the POA stuff. McNeely's POA, like putting specifically, is as good as it comes. And he's also fourth in my model on soft greens when you give him a flat stick. So, I think all of those factors play in a very beneficial way for him. The driving distance is inside the top 25. And then the other thing he has going is any of the comp corollary courses or the comp corollary trends that I'm looking for. So whether that's like difficult fairways with low penalty, off the tee and wet, cold conditions, pretty much every single metric across the board. He's a top 25 driver for me. And we've also seen this uptick from him recently, at least this year, with some of that proximity from a longer range. So I think this is a really nice spot for him where it's a buy low, and there's a lot of buy low spots in my opinion. Like I can't afford any of these guys anymore, so I'll just start firing off names. But there were a lot of golfers for me. McNeely maybe doesn't fit this exact trend, But there were a lot of golfers I did not like at Pebble Beach that my model really likes during this iteration of the tournament. So like Harris English is one of them. I was a full fade of Cameron Young. I was a full fade of Chris Gotterup. I think all of those names make a lot of sense for this tournament. And I'm kind of just trying to pick those spots where I feel like I am getting an edge on the price tag and what the ownership ends up being. So there's going to be something at the bottom of this lineup that I'm going to hate because I am kind of in the $6,000 range where there's two players I kind of want to have exposure to, and everybody else is kind of on my shit list at this point. But I'm not going to be able to afford one of them, and the other one is off the board already. So it is what it is.
Oh, all right. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, that totally screws things for me. Okay, what I'm going to do now then is I'm actually going to go up to Jake Knapp at 8,600. Now Knapp's playing phenomenally well right now. Obviously he's had a great start to the season. He's also, the no course history at Riviera is a little misleading. He's not played it in professional competition, but he went to UCLA. UCLA regularly plays Riviera. I put it at 100% chance that Knapp has not only seen his way around Riviera, but probably played it more college than maybe anyone else in the field outside of Cantlay and Rico Hoey, who also went to UCLA. The golf course is just going to play really long, and Knapp is like in a 95th percentile in distance on tour, and he's a great POA putter. And he's been hitting his irons pretty well to start the season as well. So it leaves me about 7K for my final two spots, but I'm comfortable with that, with going now. I was going to go like Mav and then hit some balance in the mid to low sevens, but I'll go Knapp here.
You're right. Knapp has looked phenomenal. And as you said from the beginning of the show, if you're prioritizing distance, right, that's the way to go. Get a guy in form who the course should almost like fitting more into his game. I was hesitant last week with Knapp. He proved me wrong. He played great. Should be less hesitation with Knapp this week. If you need to be long, that's what he does. 8,600. The price is right. I certainly like Knapp a lot as well. Audience, great job. It looks like both picks are locked in. Before we go to the audience pick, Spence, we'd love to hear from you on Jake Knapp.
I feel like I've come on this show for pretty much the entire year outside of the Sony. The Sony I actually faded him at, and then it's been nothing but Jake Knapp exposure across the board for every tournament. Like for somebody like him, and it kind of goes back to the original answer that I talked about of me running numbers as long as I do, and for it to love Jake Knapp as much as it does in my sheet, there are top 10 returns across the board, and that is not at this point, in my opinion, an error. Like, this is a really good quality golfer that there are reasons to believe that this is a better course fit than what we would have even gotten last week. And I bet him last week. I had an outright ticket on him. He was my first pick in this draft. It's kind of just, he continues to check the board and all the boxes that you want to see. A little bit more expensive this week, a little bit more ownership. Yeah. There are some more decisions that have to be made with him, but I really like Jake Knapp.
All right. Pick endorsed. Team audience, great job getting your picks locked in. Another great round for team audience. Cootie and Hitsatsune both off the board. I really like Cootie this week. I think he might be getting a little overlooked. I think this is a course that should suit him a little bit more. The way he's been striking the ball at only 7,300. I think Cootie's going to be one of my favorite value plays. So I love that pick from team audience. Would love to hear from you, Andy. Are you on Cootie or Hitsatsune this week?
Both. I really like both those picks, particularly Cootie, who I just think is a total stud. Hitsatsune, like every part of me wants to say that this is the jumping off point, but I don't know why he's still so cheap. He has 3 top 10 finishes in a row, and he hard contended in all of those tournaments. So I don't really know what the guy has to do to get into the 7K range, and ownership notwithstanding, he could be one of the higher owned players in this range. I think you probably have to keep rolling him out here until they price him a little bit more correctly. So yeah, I like the pick. I'm up, right?
You are up.
Okay. I'll be honest. I don't think either of my final two picks will be taken, but I guess this guy might be more popular. I'm going to take Sahith at 6,900, who is all over the map right now, statistically. Like, he is like, he started out the season really great. He had 3 top 15 finishes in a row, or 3 top 20 finishes in a row, played well at the Amex, played well at Torrey Pines, played well at Sony, and then really looked kind of piss poor performance at Pebble, where he finished T60. That's just going to happen with Sahith. Like, he's a super high volatile player who's played very well at Riviera before, has putted very well on West Coast POA before. He's a Pepperdine guy. Pepperdine does not play Riviera quite as much as UCLA did, but I still think he's very familiar with like this type of climate, this part of the country. Pepperdine is maybe 25 minutes, depending on traffic, from Riviera. And he's got some decent course history here to back it up as well. So I think he's like, with the way that my lineup is, I think 4 of my guys are legitimate threats to win the tournament. Like, I'm okay rolling the dice with a little more volatility here with Sahith at 6,900, that I'm pretty comfortable as the type of player that will always be able to pop at his type courses, regardless of incoming form.
There you have it. But I feel like I don't think his incoming form is poor. I mean, Thagala's been playing well.
It's not. He was just like, he was mediocre at Pebble last week. But no, he's had some great performances to start the season.
He started the season strong. So I think Thagala might be coming back for a rebound season. I like what I've seen from Thagala this year. So I will be playing Thagala as well. I like that pick. Spence, how about you? I thought you made a wincing face. So I assume you like Thagala this week. And then who are you taking with your 5th?
Yeah, it was one of the 3 names I was considering, and unfortunately, probably the name that I wanted the most of all of them. I guess I'll just mention them all right now, and we'll figure out what I'm going to do, because I don't really know what the answer is. But Wyndham Clark, Sahith Theegala, Jason Day. Now, the Jason Day one, I almost feel like if I put Patrick Cantlay in a lineup, like, who never works for me, Jason Day has also never worked historically. I don't know one time I've ever played Jason Day where it's gone well. Like, I have that flag in the background when he won the Players Championship, and I thought maybe putting it behind me, it might be good luck for him, but it never seems to be. Oh man. Shane Lowry too. I would consider Shane Lowry in this spot. Look, I'm going to take Jason Day here. I really don't know what I am doing at the.
I like it.
The problem is, Andy, I really don't know what I'm doing at the bottom of this lineup at this point. I think there's a lot of reasons to like Jason Day, like from a statistical perspective and what you see from a course history output with him. Like, you know, all the jokes that I say, like, I know it's become my shtick that like Jason Day this, Jason Day that, but I really don't pick Jason Day all that much anymore, because my model never really seems to like him, but he's inside of the top 20 of every single iteration of how I ran it. And if you look at just some of the safer stuff, he's inside of the top 15 for me. And that's like, you know, he's a pristine short game player. Like we've talked about, the putting this season has been really good. He's inside the top 5 of the field there. And if you weigh out the data, and one of the things I always like to do, and I don't necessarily always put it in my model, like the one category you will always get from me, that's my most heavily weighted one. I call it weighted strokes gained total. And essentially what it is it takes the dispersion of scoring marks. So off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting, and it looks at top 10 performers over the last 10 years. So like, I don't have the numbers up in front of me right now, but just as like a general blueprint of what that looks like this week, off the tee, 13.5%. I think approach was around 33 to 35. Around the green gets this really big spike into that 17, 18% range. And then putting is whatever the leftover change of it is. And I run that through a 2-year perspective, specifically looking at some of the course intangibles. So I go a little bit more into the nitty gritty with it. But for this tournament, I decided to just run a very generic 2026 weighted strokes gained total, all of those percentages, and just took the actual strokes gained metrics that we have seen from golfers entering this tournament. And Jason Day was the number 3 player over the first handful of events in that sheet. And for him to be popping in that sort of a fashion, I think that there is a lot of upside to be had on this pick at a total that's I'd like to hear what you have, Andy. I see 7 to 8% right now. I don't know if you have a different number than that.
Jason Day, let's see. 10.5.
Yeah.
So not crazy off. Now, with Jason Day, you're starting to get into guys in the 7K range that you can realistically pair with Scheffler. And in Scheffler lineups historically this season, you've seen a lot of second man ins exactly where Jason Day is priced at. So from a lineup building standpoint, that may be why I have him just barely in the double digits. Probably why I have Minwoo so high as well. But I don't, he's not like, I mean, you're not looking at 10.5% and saying, I can't play this guy because of that.
Yeah.
Boom. Well, no surprise that Jason Day is on Spencer's team. I mean, Spencer's trying to distance himself from that. I think this is the second time you've taken him in like 2 or 3 weeks.
I think I've given the same spiel every single week and then find him on my lineup and then try to make everybody believe that I never actually pick him.
Yeah, you're really trying hard to tell everyone you don't like Jason Day anymore and keep taking him for your team. But I agree. I actually think it's a good pick here this week. And especially he's one of those guys where I think the ownership is, I mean, the upside is there. And to get him at just like the ownership value at a lower ownership there, I think, you kind of have to roll the dice a little bit on he can do it and you win on the ownership. So I like Jason Day for you there. I have 2 here to round out my squad. This didn't go the direction I was planning, but I like the way it's going to kind of end up for me. With my first pick, I'm going to take Siwoo Kim. And I think Siwoo, after last week, I think people maybe are forgetting just how awesome he looked the previous 3 weeks. And especially like that course may have just not been the right fit for him at Pebble. I think you get him back to a longer, more challenging course, which should fit Siwoo's game much better. Siwoo was playing like must play 2.5 weeks ago. And then a 1 week happened and it doesn't feel like he's being talked about that much. So I think there's plenty of upside here with Siwoo Kim. I love what I've seen with him to the turn of 2026. And then because of the amount of money I have left, there's one guy down here. If I got to dive down deep and play, I find Tom Hoge to be interesting. He's got a good history here. He likes this course. He's played well before. He struck the ball great. His form is, for Tom Hoge, his form is good. Right? His recent form you can't compare to some of these more elite guys, but for him, he's hitting the ball well. So bring him back to a course that he likes at only 6,300. I think we can get another pretty good result here from Tom Hoge. Spencer, did I get another steal from you?
I mean, in fairness, there's a lot down here that I don't necessarily love. I wish this could be Ryan Fox. I've said that about 100 times. The second highest rated player for me would be Tom Hoge. So yes, I mean, you technically took who I probably was going to. As I move it, I'll actually make my pick right now. I'd be curious I'll ask you guys both this. We'll do a little workshop and then I'll try to make my selection. This is me trying to figure this out and not have to give a pick right away, but we'll include Hoge into the mix since he's already been taken, but we can still look at him. Hoge, Novak, Valimaki. Is there an order between those 3 that you guys would rank them? I assume, Joel, you would go Hoge first.
I'd go Hoge first, too.
I would go Hoge first also.
Yeah. Hoagie's been good at Riviera, and he really spiked on approach last week. I think the approach shots that Hoagie's going to have at Riviera are a lot different from the approach shots that he had at Pebble, but it's not like he's a bad middle iron player. He's just kind of a better wedge player. So Hoge for sure.
I'll do a quick example to help answer that question. Is exactly what we were talking about earlier. I'll just pull it up on my screen. So if you're thinking about those 3 guys and you're kind of torn, the easy exercise to do is to literally just pull it up, look at their odds. How do I take the draft board down? All right, we're stuck here at the draft board. I can figure this out. Hold on. There we go.
I can see the odds.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
So if you just go down here, so if we look at all 3, did you say Fox first or no? It was Hoge.
Hoge, Valimaki, Novak.
Valimaki, 189. And Novak is 172. So Hoge that's a significant amount higher. in terms of an outright number. What may even a better exercise to do here is to look at like top 10 percentage or top 20, because you're not really betting on these guys to win, worse if you can get a good result from them. But either way, if you're going to tap between those three, there's a much higher odds on Hoagie. So that's an easier way to kind of help make that decision.
Do either of you guys like Valimaki whatsoever?
I don't hate him. I wouldn't, and there's other guys I would take, but like, I'm not going to play him, but I could understand how you could be talked into it.
Yeah, he's 60 out of 72 for me. Novak's 58. You're splitting hairs. It's tough down there. I mean, Fox is the only guy I'm playing down there. Yeah, you're right. When you leave yourself with that much salary, it's tough down there.
I'm gonna take Andrew Novak. I don't even think he's gonna necessarily be in my player pool. It's just the one thing that I can justify with him more so than a couple of these other names that I would be looking at is some of the short game returns do look really nice for him. He's inside of the top 25 around the green. He's been a good POA putter within the model with the range that I ran. Some of the proximity stuff also looks good. I just don't really like where he is with his game right now. He feels like Andy talked about this at the very beginning part of this show, to where these exact examples, and I don't know how I got myself in this position without going with Scotty Scheffler from the very start, but it's these picks where you're going to have 12 to 18 players that are going to miss the cut. And every single player for me, outside of Ryan Fox, who is the 22nd player in my model, and Tom Hoagie, who is the 39th player in my model, every other single person is outside of the top 50. It's pretty much just the bottom of the board over and over and over and over again. And this is where all of this miscut equity is going to come into play. I just think with Novak, I'm trying to swing for the fence a little bit with him. And I'm hoping that some of those key metrics that I just talked about can come to fruition. But I wanted this to be Ryan Fox, and that's a very unfortunate output there.
Well, you know me, I'm not going to complain about an Andrew Novak pick. I like the Novak pick. Great long iron player. He's, a little bit sneaky, can sneak up on you if he makes some putts this week. I would agree it's not his optimal form right now, but I don't think he's playing terribly. I think there's certainly there where he could have a spike week and get you a good result. So I like the direction you went there. Andy, you got one left here, 7,200 to spend. How are you rounding out your squad?
I think I'm going to go Pendrith. Spencer, you brought up Wyndham Clark, who I quite like as well. He cannot find a fairway right now to save his life. He needs to be with how long he is off the tee, for him to lose strokes off the tee at the consistency that he does. His driving accuracy is so poor right now. I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world at Riviera. I'm still going to play him, but I just trust Pendrith's combination of total driving right now a little bit more. They're similar players to me, and they should play well on the same golf courses. And Pendrith played very well at Quail Hollow. He was in a big lineup for me at last year's PGA. Wyndham's obviously won Quail Hollow before. I think they're worse golf courses that you can look at than Quail Hollow for the way that Riviera is going to play this week. Colder, longer, not a huge missed fairway penalty still. So I'll take Pendrith at 7,200 to round out my team. I feel pretty good about that. All guys I'm playing, so I'm happy with that.
Pendrith off the board, and team audience locked in Lowry. So quick and efficient. That is it. That is a wrap for the draft. All the teams are locked in. Spence, before we get out of here, I'd love to get your take. Are you playing either of Taylor Pendrith or Shane Lowry this week?
Yeah, probably to both. I mean, Andy talked about some of the off the tee stuff. Pendrith is the 10th projected driver at this course for me. I seem to be on him quite a bit this year, and he has disappointed a couple times, but he has that combination that Andy and I have mentioned a million times of distance and around the green play that you would want to see. And there are a couple of metrics that even spike the putting a little bit higher. He's about middle of the pack for me from an expected putter. Poe is about the same, but there are a handful of the statistics that can pop much higher for him in my model. So like, I think you are splitting hairs like between the Pendrith and Clark discussion. They are within 2 spots of my model from an upside answer. I think that those are 2 names like that. That's kind of like the interesting part about it. And maybe in retrospect, I wish I would have ended the build a little bit differently. Like I wanted to go Thagala and then kind of go right back into this range of the Wyndham Clarks of the world. And that's how I planned to do it before I somehow ended up with Jason Day again on my team. But it's tough in these drafts. It's one of those things. And Joel, you and I say it every single week. In a 156-man field, when picks are off the board, it does change because nobody's sitting here claiming that they're playing every single person in the tournament. And we all have our reconstructed player pools. We all have our 30 or 40 players in some of those larger field tournaments that we're going to play. And when you cut it down to a 72-man field with a player pool that very quickly starts to shrink on itself, and I think that that's almost just like a lesson for the future of what happened with my build is where when you put all the cards and all the chips into the middle for one specific thing to happen, there is a very negative route that can end up occurring with it. Look, if I have one problem with my lineup, I'm okay with it. I just need Novak for this specific build to get into the weekend, but it's why this show is fun. You're always going to get unique lineups at the end of the day.
Well, it should be an exciting week. I think we have 4 very competitive lineups, so it should be a fun finish. Don't forget, smash the like button, give us a follow. It goes a long way. Of course, we'll come back next year. We will crown a king of the draft, and we will do it all over again. But tune in or type in now, what team do you think is going to win? Make a prediction. When we come back next week, we will crown the champion. You can either be right or wrong. And of course, we draft again. But before we get out of here tonight, we do have our favorite bets of the week. So we'll start with you, Spencer. Is there one bet you love or are targeting this week?
The problem with giving McNeely over Spieth is I don't know how doable that number still is in the market right now. You might be able to find.
What about Day over Spieth?
Day over Spieth is another route to go. I think anybody over Spieth makes a lot of sense. I have Day. Do you like Andy JJ Spawn this week? I have Day over Spawn in a matchup.
No, I really like Day in that spot. That somebody, one of the sharper people that I speak to in our Discord hammered that and was like adamant about. So yeah, what buck did you get that on?
The Day over. I think it's at FanDuel and Caesars. The better price is at FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah, I bet Day over Spieth. But I would absolutely endorse that one as well.
Oh, all right. How about you, Andy? What is your bet of the week?
Well, if we stick in the matchup lane, I can give the 4 matchups that I've bet. Hideki minus 120 over Henley, English minus 130 over Rose, Nat plus 100 over Ben Griffin, and Day minus 130 over Spieth. I love all those. Like Spencer, that's where I make a lot of my hay. At least this season, I've been very piss poor in the outright market and very successful in the matchup market. So probably if I'm giving a best bet, I should probably stick to the matchup. So any one of those 4, probably English over Rose might be my favorite.
Well, that's a good transition because my bet of the week is also Harris English. Not a matchup, though. I'm taking him in the top 20 market. You can get him at plus money. I like English just to have a good week. And I just want to make sure I get the exact number for you guys. Right now on DraftKings, it's plus 115. So a little bit of plus money in the top 20. I think you get some good golf from English. We all like English this week. It's pretty. I think landing in the top 20 feels like a pretty safe position for him. For me. So that is a wrap for the show. It's going to be a fun week of golf. We're going to make some money. A huge thank you to Andy Lack for coming on and drafting with us. Andy, we appreciate you. You've been excellent, super insightful. You really know the course. So we all know what we're looking for way better than before we spoke to you. Andy, before we let you go, tell everyone where else they can find you. You talked about the beginning of the show, but where else anyone can find you, follow along, and make sure they make some more money with you as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. This is a blast. I'm happy to come back anytime, unless my DraftKings lineup turns out to be a huge embarrassment, which is always in play. But yeah, Twitter is ADP Lax Sports, and if you want, we do a bunch of free stuff as well. But if you want more of the in-depth, ownership projections, our projections, and Discord and stuff like that, InsideSportsNetwork.com.
InsideSportsNetwork.com. You got a little bit of a preview, a tease of all the great insight Andy brings. If you give him a little bit of money, there is way more to that where that comes from. So follow along, follow Andy, or have some fun this week. Good luck, and Spence, did I forget anything?
Well, I want to thank Andy for coming on. It's always a pleasure. We have not been able to do this for a while, and I always enjoy the shows when we do. There are a couple people, and I'm not going to name the names live on air, but there are a couple of people that when they have entered the space that I said are going to be massive superstars. And Andy is one of those names. And if you follow his content and you know everything that he puts out, he is as savvy and sharp as there is in the industry. And, this is a space where, just like in DraftKings, like I know at the end of the day, people feel like they have to make decisions on where they sign up and who they're going to give their money to. But like, I can unequivocally say that if you go over to Andy, you look at Inside Sports, you come over to Rotoballer, like there's a lot of ways that you can make money, and you just have to be in the right areas. And I mean, whether it's at Rotoballer or whether it's with Andy, like it's both of them are premier spots. And if you are over with me, check out Andy. If you're over with Andy, I'd love for you to check out Rotoballer. It's nothing but love on my end.
Really appreciate that, man. Very kind words. And I mean, just the superstar comment threw me for a loop because I don't think as highly of myself, but I really appreciate all of the kind words, and can't say enough good things about you as well. This was great show. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone this week. Let's